A question I often hear is, why am I not enlightened yet? Or how do I know if I'm enlightened? There's so much confusion around spiritual enlightenment, and I'd like to clear some of that up in this video. I want to talk about two things you must realize in order for enlightenment to occur. And at the end of the video, I'm going to give you a practice that can hasten the journey. So what are the two things that you should realize in order for enlightenment to unfold in your life? Number one, you have to realize that enlightenment is neither extraordinary nor difficult. And number two, you must realize that enlightenment is not something that happens to a person. Let's take the first item. Enlightenment is not extraordinary or difficult. If you think enlightenment is some extraordinary experience, then it's likely not going to happen for you. People often think it's this, lights flashing and some kind of off the wall kind of enlightenment experience. And perhaps you've read books about people that have had some extraordinary experience that came along with enlightenment. Of course, publishers like these kinds of stories, and they make for good books and even movies, but they're not the actual truth. They're exceptions to what usually happens. Usually enlightenment kind of unfolds slowly. It kind of dawns on you and slowly is realized in your life. That's the gradual approach is really the most common way that it unfolds. Let's take the second misperception, that enlightenment is rare or difficult. This is probably the biggest barrier to enlightenment actually occurring, that it is somehow very rare and it's difficult and going to take years or even decades of meditation. Start by asking the question, how do I know if it's true that enlightenment is rare and difficult? So in other words, just suspend the belief that it is rare and difficult. And when you do that, everything becomes possible. It opens the door to enlightenment to actually occurring in your life. Just by suspending the belief that enlightenment is difficult can open that door. If you believe that enlightenment is something that will only happen in the distant future after years of practice, after you've jumped through various hoops, then it remains impossible. Enlightenment is not something that just happens once. It's something that unfolds again and again and eventually becomes established in our lives. Everybody has moments when they're not self-centered and they feel connected. Savor and dwell in these moments. They are really important. They're tastes of the truth. Now let's take the second item, that enlightenment is an event or an experience that a person has. If you think enlightenment is an event that's going to happen in the future, then it will never occur. It's not something that happens, and it's not something that happens in time. It is something that is already and always present, but you've just simply overlooked it. Let's say you're watching TV and somebody comes into the room and says, "What are you watching?" You say, "Oh, I'm watching a hiking show. It's a beautiful hike in the mountains." And they say, "Look at the screen." Can you see the screen? You were probably so fascinated, engaged with the hiking in the mountains, the images on the screen, that you overlooked the screen. It's the same way with our true nature. It's always and already there, just like the screen, but it's overlooked because we're so fascinated with the objects in our lives, our experiences, and what's happening to us. When you're looking for enlightenment as an event or an experience in your life, it's like looking for enlightenment in the characters in the TV show rather than the screen. As long as you're looking for enlightenment in the TV show, you're not able to see the screen because, as I said, you're so fascinated with the images on the screen. You don't have to do anything new. The screen isn't anything new or exotic. It's always there, just like your true nature of awareness is always there. It's only because we're fascinated with the objects in our lives that we overlook this fundamental, deeper dimension of ourselves. So it's the equivalent of looking for events in the mind or the body as occurring for enlightenment, rather than kind of stepping back into awareness and into that which knows experience rather than all the experience itself. So this is the simple practice that can hasten your enlightenment. It involves turning your attention towards the background, or that which knows experience, awareness, rather than the contents of experience. Turning attention towards the background or the context, or in the metaphor, the screen, rather than the events and experience in your life. Do this continuously and you will wake up to your true nature. We do this again and again until we can actually feel what this awareness that we call awareness, what this is. We can feel it as an experience. The equivalent in your life is looking for new spiritual practices or new exotic places or teachers where you might find enlightenment, rather than just stopping and looking at awareness or the knowing capacity. You were looking in the mind and body for some special experience, rather than simply stepping back into awareness. It's simply seeing that you're not the appearance of the separate self or the characters in the movie, but rather that which knows, or awareness. So this is the simple practice that can hasten your enlightenment. It involves turning your attention towards that which knows, or experience, rather than the contents of our experience. You do this continuously and you will wake up to your true nature. We do it again and again, and eventually this peace begins to be felt in our experience. This is what is meant by abiding in your true nature. It is establishing yourself in your very being. We begin to see that our being extends well beyond the borders of our skin, that we're actually one with every other being on the planet. We intuit that what we essentially are is the same reality that all beings are.